Welcome to The Window on talkSPORT, brought to you by Intuit Quickbooks. Save time and unlock growth with integrated business tools and AI automation all in one place. Welcome back to The Window with myself, Romario Webster, brought to you by Intuit Quickbooks, and I'm delighted to be joined once again. This is becoming a bit of a theme by talkSPORT's transfer guru, Ben Jacobs. Ben, how are you, my friend? You well?
Good to be back. Very fast-moving period of the window and plenty of clubs seem active.
Yeah, everything is going on as the clock ticks down, so let's get straight into it. There is only one place to start, my friend. You and Alex Crook, talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, have been right across this story, but I understand there's been developments in the future of Jean-Philippe Mateta.
Yeah, so Jean-Philippe Mateta told Crystal Palace that he wanted to leave. That happened last year, and as a consequence, Palace aware he wasn't going to sign a new contract. Now, if we go back to sort of late November, early December, Mateta was really only looking in Serie A, and Milan were the club that were most active, and they started some talks on the player side, but an offer to Crystal Palace never came. Then flash forwards, and it was Juventus trying to do a loan formula, and they didn't meet Palace's requirements or overall valuation. And suddenly, out of nowhere, Nottingham Forest put a bid on the table of in the region of £35 million, but it was not acceptable to Crystal Palace. And that offer has subsequently been improved and unanswered. But whilst Forest sweat a little bit, Milan have come back in a formal sense, and they're now the clear frontrunners in this saga. And although Milan's valuation is not at Palace's 40 million, a competitive offer has been placed by Milan. I'm told in the region of 35 million euros, but there may be some add-ons on top. And Jean-Philippe Mateta is expected not to feature at the weekend for Crystal Palace, playing, ironically, Nottingham Forest, one of his suitors, as he pushes for now a speedy resolution and ideally a move to Milan. So Milan are the front runners. There's still some work to do on the Palace side, and if Mateta departs, it just might still pave the way for Jørgen Strand Larsen to join Crystal Palace, even though that deal has hit a few complications.
Well, Ben, yourself and I were right across the developments there, as it seemed Crystal Palace were pursuing a loan deal for Aston Villa's Evan Gerson. What is the latest there? Could this force Palace's hand in going for Jørgen Strand Larsen?
Yeah, I think Evan Gerson was always a little bit separate to Jørgen Strand Larsen, aside from the fact that the overall finances need to be considered. Even though Gerson starts as a loan, there is a option to buy. And my understanding is that Palace, should they succeed in signing Gerson from Villa, are quite willing to take it, because he was actually a target for Crystal Palace a long while ago before he eventually picked the move to Aston Villa. So they have to budget to an extent for two. And certainly to break their club record again for the second time in a January window, Palace are going to need an outgoing. So some of the delay over Jørgen Strand Larsen is just out and out market hesitation. But this is a 45 million plus 5 million deal. And throughout much of the window, we've been led to believe that Jørgen Strand Larsen would be more a player that Wolves would sell for 40 million. So what I think is happening here is the direction of travel is Mateta and Milan, but a lower price than the 40 million number that Crystal Palace want for the French striker. And if they can shave a few million off the Strand Larsen deal, those two things, financially speaking, offset each other. So even though we were led to believe yesterday by well-placed sources on all sides that through intermediaries there was an agreement in principle for Jørgen Strand Larsen, that's the 45 plus 5 deal, actually Crystal Palace to proceed want slightly different terms, and they might even try and adjust the fee a little bit lower. And if they shave off those millions, that might just unlock Mateta going to Milan, also for a number that's expected to begin with a 3 rather than a 4.
With all due respect, 35 million quid for Harvey Elliott. You said to me earlier on, would you spend that sort of money? And I thought, well, actually, do you know what? It depends what the going price for a player is nowadays. Oscar Bob is 20-something million quid. He's going to Fulham this week. Jørgen Strand Larsen, £50 million for a player who hasn't hardly scored a goal this season.
He got 14 Premier League goals last season, 1 Premier League goal this season in 21 appearances. signed in July for 23 million.
I think he's
And
had
now-
2 new contracts as well.
So 23 million he signed for in July.
Yeah.
So he's got 1 goal and he's over double your money.
Do you know what?
Makes sense.
I only have one question.
Make it make
Who's
sense.
his agent?
It's incredible, isn't
Well,
it? 50 million.
I think it's George Mendes who is trying to do the deal on behalf of Wolves.
Are West Ham interested?
Well, but what's interesting here is we know that Leeds made an offer around about £30 million plus add-ons. That was rejected earlier in the window. Yeah, but there's a bit of benchmark now, isn't there? The fact that Palace have even indicated they're willing to go up to £50 million. They can't now sell him to Leeds.
Abraham's
Less
20
than that.
million. Tammy Abrams 20 million. And you send me Strand Larson, he's 50 million.
I know where I'll be spending my money.
Yeah, do me a favour.
On the subject of Wolves and
And that's no
strikers-
disrespect to him, by the way, because I want to just say, actually, he's a very hard-working fella. And if you read his backstory about how he became a professional footballer and the work that he did with his dad before school opened every single morning in order to get to the level that he is, then I understand that he's worked incredibly hard. But in terms of valuation for what he's given in the Premier League, I think it's just a bit steep.
Lost his place in the Wolves side as well. Been on the bench.
Well, I think that's partly in preparation for his departure.
As the striker merry-go-rounds happen, Ben, it will usually force Wolves' hand into replacing Jurgen Strand Larsen. Who have they got their eyes on, Ben?
Yeah, I think Wolves are looking at Che Adams, which was an exclusive that we broke this morning on talkSPORT, and another target that isn't brand new. When he was still at Southampton and on the way out, Wolves were one of the clubs that decided to at least hold some talks with the player camp, but it didn't progress and he went to Torino, and now Wolves are back in a more formal sense. And what they like about Che Adams is not just the fact that he'll be fully invested in the project between now and the end of the season, but the kind of signing that is prepared to stay in the Championship. And obviously Wolves' position means that even if they end up having a miracle and somehow staying up, they have to plan in this window for anybody that arrives to be up for the fight should they, and it's looking likely, go down. And Che Adams ticks both of those boxes: a player that can help score goals between now and the end of the season, and somebody that Wolves feel also could be an important footballer in their push for promotion should they go down. And it's not always easy mid-season to persuade a player to come if it looks like you're going down. Often they want a loan with an option that they can get out of, or they want a clause if you go down that allows them to leave. Che Adams isn't like that. He's looking to leave Torino in Italy, and as a consequence, this one could progress in the coming days. And for Che Adams, it's also a chance to play Premier League football between now and the end of the season with Steve Clarke, the Scotland boss, watching, and that's another factor, I'm told, in the players' thinking.
Ben, I know you told me a few weeks ago that Crystal Palace were eyeing up Sidiki Sherif of Angers in France. Can we rule them out of the running for him?
Yeah, I think at the moment, so Palace held talks with Sidiki Sherif and it never really developed because Crystal Palace's offer was in the region of 18 million euros and Angers were asking for a minimum of 25 million euros. But what complicated it further is the fact that Paris FC, now about 2 weeks ago, bid, I'm told, a total package of 32 million euros, and Crystal Palace were never going to go that high. So Angers have had a lot of the cards, even though there was a point in time where Sidiki Sherif really wanted to go to Crystal Palace. And then in the last 24 to 48 hours, Palace have backed off. They've got other targets in mind. Those close to Sherif say he's decided he doesn't want to go to Crystal Palace anyway. And now it's Fenerbahce really pushing in advanced talks to try and get that deal over the line. And it looks like between now and the end of the window, Sidiki Sherif will be a new Fenerbahce player.
Let's head over to the west side of London then, Ben. Have Chelsea made any progress at all in their pursuit of wonderkid Jeremy Jacquet?
None yet, but talks are still ongoing, and this one could end up going down to the wire. The Kenan Mete sale to Al Hilal is somewhat a factor in this because Rennes have got great money there, so even less of a reason to do a cut price deal for Jeremy Jacquet. But that aside, the Rennes position has been crystal clear throughout this month. Number one, they just don't want to sell because Jacquet can help them get Champions League football. And number two, if they are to sanction anything mid-season. They want above the 64 million euros paid that saw Jeremy Doku go to Manchester City, because then it's a new club record sale. Chelsea's valuation hasn't been that high. So even though they like Jeremy Jacquet now and they believe that the player wants to join, they're either going to have to increase their offer and maybe pay a little bit above the odds, as you tend to have to in a January window, or they're going to have to wait. And if they wait, they have the option to still push and do it now and get ahead of suitors, maybe like Liverpool and Bayern Munich, who will come calling in the summer. So then we're in pre-agreement or loan back territory, or they're going to have to wait until the summer. But there might be a bidding war at that point if other suitors come calling, and Rennes' price might not change. So Chelsea is still intent on adding a starting centre-back. Jeremy Jacquet is their leading choice. No breakthrough at the time of recording, but let's see if that changes in the coming days, because I'm told Chelsea still open to all options, whether signing now or whether some kind of pre-agreement or loan back. And as it stands, they've not ended their pursuit of Jeremy Jacquet, but negotiations are still ongoing.
Well, that's one centre-back we could see join Chelsea. A centre-back that may be leaving Chelsea this month is Axel Disasi. I understand you have an update on his future, Ben?
Yeah, so Axel Disasi is a player that Chelsea would like to sell permanently, and I think they've strengthened their hand by recalling him to the first team squad, because if he was in the bomb squad this late in the window, suitors would be in a stronger position. But Chelsea are saying he's training well enough and he's being professional enough that if he stays in the first team squad, he just might end up being useful. But naturally, if they add another defender, he falls further down the pecking order. So Chelsea would prefer a permanent exit. West Ham United have made an inquiry about a loan. Now, naturally, this could develop very quickly, even before we get to deadline day. As of last night and early this morning, suggestions that the loan to West Ham was done or was close have been dismissed by sources I've spoken to at both clubs. And one of the reasons for that is because Chelsea want to keep the options open in case a permanent bid comes in, but also West Ham have got more than one target that they're looking at as well. Of course, throughout the course of today or the next few days, it could progress. Definitely an option for West Ham United, but we're not quite in done deal territory yet.
Now, Ademola Lookman of Atalanta over in the Serie A in Italy has been often linked with a move back to the UK or even just to other clubs in and around Europe, Ben. Could he finally be on the way out of Atalanta?
Yeah, I think there's a fair chance here. And the trickiest part in all of this, as we saw over the summer when it was Inter that tried, is convincing Atalanta on the overall package. And Ademola Lookman really wanted to leave the club. It was very tense over the summer. He issued a public statement, but Inter couldn't agree a package. And it was actually a surprise that he was not on the move at that point. Flash forwards, and we haven't really had any significant Premier League interest. Tottenham are the one club that made a kind of cursory inquiry, but for whatever reason, they've not, as of now anyway, chosen to enter the race. And you've got two clubs outside of England that are both pushing. Fenerbahce, who are the most aggressive, and they're prepared to pay 40 million euros, which broadly speaking matches Atalanta's valuation. But there's a lot of work to still do on the structure of the deal, particularly the payment terms. Then you have Atletico Madrid, who have made calls in the last day or two, and they're considering making a formal bid that's understood to have more preferable payment terms, but will be under 40 million euros. Atleti trying to do a deal at 30, 35 million euros, maybe some add-ons on top. But we're waiting to see at the time we're recording anyway, whether Atleti try a hijack and make a formal bid, or alternatively, if Fenerbahce end up getting a clear run. So Fenerbahce, crazy busy. Siddiqui, Sherif, they've been trying for N'Golo Kante, but no kind of breakthrough at the moment. And now seeing if they can get Ademola Lookman over the line and maybe that late competition from Atletico Madrid for his signature.
And just to finish off, Ben, some contract news. I understand Arsenal have secured a pre-agreement with wonder kid Max Dowman. How important was that deal to the Gunners in getting that done?
Oh, absolutely. Massive and never in doubt, as you can imagine, because Max Dowman is seen as a player ready for first team action now and a massive, huge part of Arsenal's future. And this was a commitment, although great to have and almost a formality. Everybody knew that Max Dowman wasn't looking to do anything other than commit to Arsenal. And because of his age, the way it works is he's signed a pre-contract with the club, and then that will lead to a professional contract when he turns 17 in December. And this is a player that all Arsenal fans, I think football fans generally, can get behind. He joined Arsenal's academy at the age of 8 and started breaking records for fun. He's adept in more than one position as an attacking midfielder and a winger as well. He's got maturity for somebody so young, amazing technical ability too, and he's basically one of England's most exciting prospects and somebody I think that is just going to break onto the scene. He already has, of course, but more and more, and be a real star for Arsenal both now and in the future as well. So naturally, when you know you've got a star on your hands, you still have to negotiate, and they know what they're worth even at a young age. But Max Dowman only wanted Arsenal. Arsenal obviously wanted Max Dowman, and this is a fantastic signing, I think, for both Arsenal and the Premier League. So great news for Arsenal during a quiet window. By the way, we're not that surprised that Arsenal have had a quiet window because they did a lot of their legwork over the summer. But Andrea Berta is still looking a bit further ahead for the summer to bring in maybe another starting left winger. That's quite high priority. And in addition to that, Arsenal thinking about the centre-back market, which is why they were one of the candidates for Mark Gahey before he moved to Manchester City. And Gabby Jesus' future is going to be a really interesting one. He could depart, and Arsenal looking at young number 9s as well. Some names I'm hearing: Kenan Yıldız over as a winger, Etta Ayong, one of the names that Arsenal have held a meeting with as far as forwards are concerned, and one of the big stories in the last few weeks, even though it's very, 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 and I stress very 3 times, exploratory, Julian Alvarez. And all Andrea Berta has really done is make a call to a club and to a player that he knows really well to find out the contractual situation that he'll know from his time there and understand whether the player might be open to an exit in 2026. And Arsenal sources don't deny that they've made contact for Julian Alvarez, but they basically argue, and I think they're correct, that virtually every top European club under the sun has taken some kind of early and exploratory call, and Berta wouldn't really be doing his job if he didn't have hundreds of these calls with lots of prospective targets. But we're really talking about initial or exploratory, so nothing necessarily to get excited yet. But that just shows you, with Dowman, Arsenal are planning and locking down their future, and with the other signings, they're moving ahead towards what's likely to be a relatively busy, big spending and productive summer for the Gunners.
I mean, Ben, just lastly, a word you used a moment ago was surprises. That is a word that goes hand in hand with the window. Can we expect any surprises in the last few days? Obviously, we have a huge game week in the Premier League coming up, but come Monday, could we see any clubs move late?
Yeah, we'll see how much is outstanding on the Monday specifically. My sense is that Mateta to Milan is a bit of a surprise because they kind of ruled out making a move towards the back end of last year, and now they're back. So Mateta's got his number 1 choice if that comes off, and we weren't necessarily expecting that. I would say Mark Gahey to Man City now instead of the summer was a little bit of a surprise as well, in my opinion anyway. If Chelsea get Jeremy Jacquet on deadline day or before, for now, that will be Rennes changing their position as well. West Ham and some say Tottenham and goalkeepers could still be one to watch. Antonin Kinski and West Ham United is still an active and developing story. Tyreek George and a loan or a permanent exit might be another one to watch between now and when the window shuts. And Everton are one of the clubs that have inquired. An exclusive that I broke about 10 days ago, Brooke Norton Coffey expected to leave Genoa for a fee of around 20 million euros. And there's a few clubs in Italy in particular, Napoli, Juventus, Inter, and the latter have held some talks only in the last few days. But there's Premier League clubs as well. Newcastle haven't got a defender in yet. They'd love to in theory. Let's see whether the right target presents itself and PSR allows. So I think a few clubs will be busy down the final stretch of the window. But I also think when we look back on this window, there won't be many bigger than Antoine Semenyo to Man City and Mark Guehi to the same club. And there won't be much bigger than Enzo Maresca going on New Year's Day, Ruben Amorim going a few days later, and then Xabi Alonso leaving Real Madrid. So the real surprises, at least the speed at which things have unravelled, have actually come early in January in the managers' market. And then who would have predicted? Maybe it will change, but as of now, that Nuno Espirito Santo and Thomas Frank might actually outlive the window and continue on because they've both been able to get some results recently. So it's been a mad window and a surprise window with manager movements, but I'm sure there'll be one more box office transfer for us all to get excited about on deadline day. And of course, we'll keep you posted here on talkSPORT.
Let's talk about Raheem Sterling. What's happening with him?
Well, I think he's in talks with a number of European clubs. This is not quite so pressing in terms of time. The window closes, as you mentioned, 7 o'clock on Monday, but because he's now a free agent, having been paid up by Chelsea, he doesn't have to sign before the window closes. Napoli are one of the teams who've been mentioned to me. Bayer Leverkusen. I know Vincent Kompany in the summer was keen to take him to Bayern Munich. You wonder if that might be an option as well. I think West Ham have tried again, but stability is the word that keeps coming back when it comes to Raheem Sterling. I'm not sure that he feels West Ham are a particularly stable club at this moment in time.
Well, his next move has to be one where he plays football consistently. So he knows that, and that's why he's got to be...
Can we give him some respect, though? Because there's been a few comments on different shows about him, especially with Simon Jordan, that he's not lifting a leg. Like, this is someone who's won 10 major trophies.
13, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. Like Manchester City's best winger once. Player of the tournament for England, for me, 2021, the Euros. He was a star player for us. Let's give him some respect. It didn't work on loan at Arsenal. For some reason, the Chelsea, it didn't work. They went in a different direction. Not lifting the leg because you sign a contract and you want your money out of a contract. I would do exactly the same, and most players were. I'm sure Chelsea, 18 months left, have says, there's a year. We're going to save 6 months' money. Perfect, suits every party. Go and play somewhere now where you're going to enjoy your football. You might get £10,000 a week. Who cares? Go and enjoy playing football now.
Let's just quickly round up because we haven't got too much time. Danny Roll said yesterday, 36 hours of the window left, or a little bit longer than that. Are we going to be busy?
Yeah, I think they're trying to bring in a striker. I know there's talks with a number of English clubs, so we're going to be keeping a close eye on Rangers. And as you say, I think they feel they're in a position to challenge for the title, so therefore I think the board are going to back him. They were obviously criticised for their spending in the summer. Ironically, I think Jamiti, which was the signing a lot of Rangers fans didn't like, he's been linked with a few clubs, but I think he'll stay.
Does he need to get out of Villa before the deadline on Monday?
Well, if he's not going to play, then yeah, he needs to go and play minutes because for whatever reason it just hasn't worked for him. Like, he's gone there. I'm not saying he was a guaranteed starter, but when you looked at their team was pretty much set. But I thought he would have definitely had more minutes than he's got. I thought there'd be more opportunities for him, but for whatever reason, he hasn't been given that. Maybe Unai Emery's not been happy with his training levels, his performances when he's got on the pitch. But either way, I've looked at that scenario and gone, and I never think it's good, right? And you understand what I mean? When you come from a club like Liverpool and you go to a smaller club, which even though Villa's massive, it's not Liverpool, and you still don't play. I always think that's a bit of a worry because if you're coming from a bigger club, you think you'd pretty much walk into most teams. But when you go on loan to a smaller club and still don't play, it's a worry.
Watch live Serie A action this Sunday on the talkSPORT YouTube channel. You can catch Jamie Vardy's Cremonese up against Lautaro Martinez Inter Milan live on the talkSPORT YouTube channel. This Sunday, 1st of February, 5 p.m. Make sure you tune in. You've been watching The Window on talkSPORT, brought to you by Intuit Quickbooks. Save time and unlock growth with integrated business tools and AI automation all in one place.